It was the first DGMO briefing on Operation Sindoor. The Director Generals of all the three Armed Forces of India, the Navy, the Army and the Air Force were present at this, one of the most detailed briefings, comprehensive with a lot of proof and more or less the back room, the entire details of how the operations first to precision strikes at Pakistan, and then of course how the Indian Army responded to the escalation by Pakistan, punitive action of how Pakistan was in fact brought into submission. The DGMOs in fact said that it was the Pakistani DGMO who reached out after India's punitive action. We struck Pakistan where it hurts. Take a look at what were the highlights of this entire press conference.
The locations that emerged were numerous, but as we deliberated more, we realized that some of these terror hubs were now bereft of any presence and had preemptively been vacated, fearing retribution from us. There was also a term of reference and our own binding, self-imposed restriction to target only terrorists and thus prevent collateral damage. There were 9 camps that you are now all familiar with, which were confirmed by our various intelligence agencies to be inhabited. Some of these were in POJK, while there were others that were located in the Punjab province in Pakistan. Nefarious places such as Muridke, the hub center of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, has over the years bred infamous characters such as Ajmal Kasab and the likes of David Headley.
Now coming to Bhavalpur, this is the target complex that we are dealing with, a fairly large target complex. So we had to carefully choose the points that we needed to address, which were high value and which would meet our stated objectives of eliminating the terrorists. I would like to draw your attention to this red canopy, and in relation to that, I would cover the targets. One target system is a series of buildings here, other one here, and other one out here.
In the evening of 7th of May, we were saturated with a raid of Pakistani unmanned aerial vehicles and small drones. The difference here was that we had targeted the terrorists. The adversary now has targeted our civilians and the military infrastructure. So it had to be responded to. So in a quick and calibrated response, that very night, we struck their radar installations at Lahore and close to Gujranwala, the LYT installation, to indicate to him that we are ready, yet we do not want to escalate. Our fight was with the terrorists and not with the Pakistani military establishment. In a measured and calibrated response, we once again targeted his military installations, which included his SAM sites at Malirkant. This also included his surveillance radar sites at Lahore and close to Gujranwala. A decision was taken to strike where it would hurt. And towards that, in a swift, coordinated, calibrated attack, we struck his air bases, command centers, military infrastructure, air defense systems across the entire Western Front. The bases we struck include Chaklala, Rafiki, and mind you, Chaklala is Islamabad. Rahim Yar Khan, Sakar, sending a clear message that aggression will not be tolerated. This was followed by strikes at Sargoda, Bholari, Jacobabad. We also struck the C2 centers at Murid, the UAE complex at Murid, Rafiki, radar at Chunia, which I will show you, Rahimyar Khan airfield, and the unmanned combat aerial vehicle hangar at Sakar.
I have no doubt in my mind that we achieved total surprise, and those strikes across those 9 terror hubs left more than 100 terrorists killed, including high-value targets such as Yusuf Azhar, Abdul Malik Rauf, and Mudassir Ahmed that were involved in the hijack of IC-814 and the Pulwama blast. The line of control was also violated soon after by Pakistan, and the erratic and rattled response of our enemy was apparent from the number of civilians, inhabited villages, and religious sites such as Gurudwaras that were unfortunately hit by them, leading to a sad loss of lives.
Sir, can you give a number of assets we lost? Because there's been a lot of speculation going on, international media writing a lot of things about our platforms, including Rafale. I mean, Pakistan claiming that Rafale has been downed, etc. Can you put that question to rest and clarify on that?
I guess that question is for me. All right, I'm happy that you've asked this question. You know, we are in a combat scenario, and losses are a part of combat. The question that you must ask us, okay, and indeed that we must ask ourselves, you inclusive, is have we achieved our objectives? Have we achieved our objective of decimating that terrorist camp? And the answer is a thumping yes. And the results are for the whole world to see. As for the details, what could have been, how many numbers, which platform did we lose? You know, at this time, I would not like to comment on that because we are still in a combat situation. And if I comment on anything, it will only be advantage adversary. So we don't want to give him any advantage at this stage. All I can say is that we have achieved our objectives that we selected, and all our pilots are back home. Thank you.
In the aftermath of the cowardly attacks on innocent tourists at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistani-sponsored terrorists on 22nd April, the Indian Navy's Carrier Battle Group, surface forces, submarines and aviation assets were immediately deployed at sea with full combat readiness in concert with the joint operation plan of the Indian Defence Forces. You may be aware that we tested and refined tactics and procedures at sea during multiple weapon firings in the Arabian Sea within 96 hours of the terrorist attack. Forces remained forward deployed in the northern Arabian Sea in a decisive and deterrent posture with full readiness and capacity to strike select targets at sea and on land, including Karachi at time of our choosing. The forward deployment of the Indian Navy compelled Pakistani naval and air units to be in a defensive posture, mostly inside harbours or very close to the coast, which we monitored continuously.
My colleagues Vishnu Shom and Shiv Arora breaking down the top highlights of this press conference. Listen in.
You've heard of stories of terrorists who, set up their base inside residential neighborhoods or hide inside a civilian's house and then fire at the security forces. That's what the Pakistan Air Force was doing by refusing to close its airspace during a drone raid campaign against India. They were essentially allowing international passenger jets to fly in their airspace, hiding behind them in the hope that the presence of passenger jets would in some way, give the Indian Air Force pause, and and muddy their plans as far as targeting, because obviously the Indian Air Force is not a trigger-happy force that will fire missiles into airspace where passenger jets are flying. Unlike the Pakistan Air Force, the Indian Air Force cares for civilians, cares for passengers, etc. So this was the Pakistan Air Force using international airlines as a human shield up in the air. And I wonder if international aviation bodies will be taking a very close look at what the Indian Air Force and the Indian government have proven. But the Indian Air Force, in Operation Sindoor, Ankit, has been completely front and center. And I think this press briefing today added many levels of detail to what we knew about the striking of, Air Force bases in Pakistan, the terror camps, the terror seminaries, etc., providing not just that vivid imagery and battle damage, visual evidence of the strikes, but the battle damage evidence, the pictures, the satellite images, the incredible amount of human intelligence that must have been gathered, to prove that so many people had actually been killed in all those places. I think the armed forces have made this truly, and I say this without exaggeration, Ankit, the biggest non-war military operations in India's history.
In speaking to very senior sources who are aware of the government's thinking post-Pahalgam, in which 26 innocent civilians were killed, I've learned a great deal. Firstly, that there were three primary goals for India post-Pahalgam: a military, a psychological and a political goal against Pakistan in hitting the terror camps in Muridke, in Muzaffarabad and in Bahawalpur, which is the headquarters of the Jaish-e-Mohammed. This was a comeuppance for the ISI, and the message was this: no matter where you are, we will hit you. We've gone for the head of the snake, not for soldiers. There was also a very clear signal, a message that these sources indicated to me, that it was the Pakistani Director General of Military Operations who, on the basis of the success of India's strikes on various Pakistani air bases, called up his Indian counterpart and said that they would agree for a ceasefire. This was the same Director General of Military Operations who a couple of days earlier had rebuffed an offer from India to not escalate when this DGMO, our DGMO, had called him up and said, look, we have hit these terror training camps, this is our reason. So the reason Pakistan changed its mind, our sources believe, is because of the success of the Indian operations in hitting these Pakistani camps. Now, and air bases and all the facilities in those air bases, the military targets which we very successfully struck. They are absolutely certain that the Pakistani attacks which did come in, where they tried to hit our facilities, our air bases, including Adhampur, with what has been described to me as a near hypersonic weapon, were unsuccessful. In fact, this near hypersonic speed weapon missed its target. It fell a few kilometers short of Adhampur. And the Indian counter action on these bases, which I have described, was something which gave Pakistan a reality check. India telling the United States also that, look, we will keep increasing or enhancing our attacks if Pakistan attacks us. But a lot of what Pakistan is saying is a fantasy narrative, and that post-Pahalgam, the cost for Pakistan will rise inexorably. Pakistan will face consequences for their actions on terrorism. So all in all, the government believes that Pakistan stood down as a result of very strong Indian action against those Pakistani air bases, and in understanding that they have not been able to achieve their military aims in targeting us in several centers across our country.